Senate will come to order. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenbu, Hall, Hancock, Hinojosa Nueces, Hinojosa Hidalgo, Huffman, Hughes, Johnson, King, Colcourse, Menendez, Middleton, Miles, Nichols, Parker, Paxton, Perry, Schwertner, Sparks, West, Zaffarini.
Quorum is present. Members, gallery, will you please rise for the invocation to be delivered by Minister Steve Jones, Giddings Church of Christ in Giddings, Texas. If everyone can rise. Thank you.
Good morning. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for all your blessings in 2025. Thank you for our wonderful free country and the state of Texas. Be with each of us as we do your will. Help these men and women to do their best in service to the people of Texas. May they serve with insight, energy, and enthusiasm. Help them as they pass laws for our people to make sound, wise decisions. Give them strength for the day and keep steady in their decisions. Thank you again for your son, Jesus. And it is in his name we pray. Amen.
Sir.
Thank you, Minister Jones. Members, if you can welcome Minister Jones to the chamber. The Dean of the Senate moves to dispense with the reading of yesterday's journal. Is there objection? The chair hears none. Motion's adopted. Mr. Doorkeeper.
Mr. President, there's a message from the House.
Admit the messenger.
Mr. President, I am directed by the House to inform the Senate that the House has taken the following action.
Chair lays out the following resolution. The Secretary will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 512 by Paxton, recognizing May 13, 2025 as Phelan Daffa Day at the state capitol.
Chair recognizes Senator Paxton on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members. Members, I would like to take a moment to recognize and thank those here with us today in the gallery in support of Phelan Daffa Day. And you will see them standing here in their beautiful yellow up in the gallery. Members, I first learned about the beautiful practice of Phelan Daffa through one of my constituents in Senate District 8. Practitioners of Phelan Daffa strive to attune their lives to the universal qualities of truth, compassion, and forbearance. I met with members of the Phelan Daffa community in my district office during my first session as these individuals shared stories of their friends and their family members who had been imprisoned in China and tortured through the despicable practice of forced organ harvesting. 2 sessions ago, this body passed SCR 3, decrying the practice of forced organ harvesting. Last session, I was honored to co-author Senate Bill 1040 with Senator Kolkhorst, which became the first anti-forced organ harvesting law in the United States. Texas will continue to stand as a safe haven in the face of such atrocities. And I am honored to stand with you today here in this chamber and recognize May 13th as Phelan Daffa Day. The Lone Star State is strengthened and enhanced by your presence and your engagement in our communities. Thank you for taking time to be with us at the Capitol today. And thank you for your service, not only to the great state of Texas, but truly to the world. Welcome to your Texas Senate. And members, would you join me in welcoming members of the Phelan Daffa community here to the Capitol today?
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. Resolution is adopted. Chair lays out the following resolution. The Secretary read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 509 by Birdwell, recognizing the members of the General Federation of Women's Clubs of Texas at the state capitol.
Chair recognizes Senator Birdwell on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, joining us in the East Gallery today are more than 60 members of the General Federation of Women's Clubs of Texas. Would y'all stand? Well, you're already standing. Good deal. The General Federation of Women's Clubs of Texas was founded in Waco in 1897, and this organization empowers women and helps them through their community service. GFWC has more than 2,000 members across 78 clubs in Texas, and last year, the members logged nearly 96,000 hours, Mr. President, of volunteer work and participated in 2,245 community service projects. They donated approximately $400,000 in monetary gifts and $190,000 in in-kind contributions. In addition, GFWC Texas gives scholarships each year to help students pursuing higher education, and one of their current focuses is addressing human trafficking, the current modern-day form of slavery. This is an issue in Texas and our world that devastates countless people, especially women and children. And GFWC Texas helps women to be successful by providing its club members with opportunities to serve and encourage others. And they build strong relationships along the way. This organization has been a part of Texas for 128 years. We honor their volunteer spirit and their efforts. Members, please join me in welcoming the General Federation of Women's Clubs of Texas to their state capitol. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. Resolution is adopted. Chair recognizes Senator Middleton to introduce the Doctor of the Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I'm pleased to introduce our Doctor of the Day, Dr. Ozuma Obi Nwako. Dr. Nwako is a board-certified family physician specializing in geriatric medicine, and she received her medical degree from Ebonyi State University in Nigeria. She completed her medicine residency at Datar Healthcare System at Texas A&M University program, and her geriatric medicine fellowship training at UTMB, Galveston. Dr. Obi, as she's fondly known to her patients and staff, is passionate about tailoring individualized, quality, and compassionate health care and families' unique needs through her value-based care system. She loves her patients and cares for them with all her heart, as I know, and she can provide medical care for all age groups related to them and serve them in a one-stop shop. And when not serving us and helping keep our community well, appreciate all you do. She spends her time creating good memories with family and friends. She enjoys volunteering both locally and internationally in her free time, traveling and learning American football, and trying out new cultures and food. So if you'll join me in welcoming our Doctor of the Day today, Dr. Nwako.
Members, if there is no objection, I would like to postpone the reading and referral of bills and resolutions until the end of today's calendar. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Chair announces the signing of the following in the presence of the Senate.
SCR 4, SB 5, SB 266, SB 499, SB 616, SB 688, SB 771, SB 842, SB 888, SB 985, SB 996, SB 1025, SB 1172, SB 1257, SB 1349, SB 1418, SB 1464, SB 1490, SB 1502, SB 1555, SB 1568, SB 1569, SB 1729, SB 1841, SB 1851, SB 2007, SB 2351, SB 2419, SB 2476, SB 2550, SB 2774, SB 2776.
Members, that concludes the morning call. Senator Hall, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on House Bill 1109.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, House Bill 1109 will exempt counties from paying the motor fuel tax if the gas or diesel is sold in the county and used exclusively for county services. All counties that would have to do this is file a refund claim with the comptroller at the end of the year. Licensed fuel providers and distributors would receive a credit on their tax returns for fuel sales to counties. 80 counties have already passed resolutions supporting this bill. With that, Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Hall moves suspension of the regular order of business on House Bill 1109. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading House Bill 1109. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 1109 relating to an exemption from certain motor fuel taxes for counties in this state.
Senator Hall, you're recognized for a motion.
Move HB 1109 to third reading.
Senator Hall moves passage to third reading. Is there objection? Hearing none, bill is passed to third reading. Senator Hall, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Hall moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading final passage House Bill 1109. Secretary, read the caption.
House Bill 1109 relating to an exemption from certain motor fuel taxes for counties in this state.
Senator Hall, you're recognized for a motion.
Move final passage of HB 1109.
Senator Hall moves final passage of House Bill 1109. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations. Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on House Bill 554.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the regular order of business to consider House Bill 554. On June the 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger led his troops into Galveston to deliver a beautiful and long overdue message. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States, President Lincoln, all slaves are free. This final extension of the Emancipation Proclamation is one of the most important acts of our nation and our state's history, and emphasizes that all of God's children are born free. House Bill 554 would allow for the sale of fireworks to celebrate this day and allow a commissioner's court to approve that period of fireworks sale. And with that, I move suspension.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the regular order of business on House Bill 554. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading House Bill 554. The Secretary will read the caption.
House Bill 554 relating the sale of fireworks on and before the Juneteenth holiday.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion.
Move passage to third reading.
Senator Middleton moves passage to third reading. Is there objection? Hearing none, the bill is passed to third reading. Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading final passage House Bill 554. The Secretary will read the caption.
House Bill 554 relating the sale of fireworks on and before the Juneteenth holiday.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion.
Move final passage.
Senator Middleton moves final passage House Bill 554. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations. Senator Schwertner? Senator Menendez, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on House Bill 2081.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business to take up and consider at this time House Bill 2081. Members, while it is clear that the state understands the positive impacts of post-secondary education, we fall short in affording those opportunities to students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or IDD. House Bill 2081 creates the Building Better Futures program within the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to facilitate new and robust CTP programs at institutions that will help empower more folks and allow them to stay closer to home. When we invest in this population, we see huge impacts both on an individual and for us collectively, and put folks in a position to apply for jobs and contribute economically and live independently. Mr. President, members, the testimony that we heard in the Education Committee, especially riveting, was a mother and her son who they want to have an independent future. And that young man is having to go to the University of Arkansas because he's going to get a guaranteed internship, and they're going to be paying out-of-state tuition in addition to all the other fees because they couldn't find a similar program here in Texas. And we can do better for our young families, our students with IDD, and so I move suspension, Mr. President.
Senator Menendez moves suspension of the regular order of business on House Bill 2081. Is there objection? Hearing none. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading House Bill 2081. The Secretary will read the caption.
House Bill 2081, relating to the establishment of the Building Better Futures program.
Senator Menendez, you're recognized for a motion.
I move passage to third reading, Mr. President.
Senator Menendez moves passage to third reading. Is there objection? Hearing none. Bill is passed to third reading. Senator Menendez, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional three-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Menendez moves suspension of the three-day rule. Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
30 ayes and 1 nay. Rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading final passage House Bill 2081. The Secretary will read the caption.
House Bill 2081, relating to the establishment of the Building Better Futures program.
Senator Menendez, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the young people who came and testified, Erwin Kaysen, his mom, and Candace Thompson, people who would have loved to receive their higher education here in Texas but couldn't, I move final passage of House Bill 2081.
Senator Menendez moves final passage of House Bill 2081. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
30 ayes, 1 nay. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Blanco, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on House Bill 334.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business and to take up and consider House Bill 334. Right now, county employees in Texas have limited options when facing major family needs like caring for a newborn or seriously ill loved one. Too often, their only choice is take up unpaid leave or return to work before they're ready. This bill gives counties the option to create a shared family leave pool, helping employees support their families at no cost to the county. This bill is an important tool for improving workforce stability, retention, and morale in county government. Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Blanco moves suspension of the regular order of business on House Bill 334. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading House Bill 334. The Secretary will read the caption.
House Bill 334, relating to the establishment of a county employee family leave pool program.
Senator Blanco, you're recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move passage of House Bill 334 to third reading.
Senator Blanco moves passage to third reading. Is there objection? Hearing none, bill is passed to third reading. Senator Blanco, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional three-day rule.
So move, Mr. President.
Senator Blanco moves suspension of three-day rule. Secretary call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading final passage House Bill 334. The Secretary will read the caption.
House Bill 334, relating to the establishment of a county employee family leave pool program.
Senator Blanco recognized for a motion.
Mr. President, I move final passage of House Bill 334.
Senator Blanco moves final passage of House Bill 334. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes, 0 nay. The bill is finally passed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members.
Senator Birdwell, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2785.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business, take up and consider committee substitute Senate Bill 2785. Members, the bill expedites the process for district and county attorneys to receive reports of abuse or neglect from the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, DFPS. Under current law, there's an inconsistent and sometimes delayed communication between DFPS and prosecuting attorneys regarding reports of child abuse or neglect. These reports often contain information that is crucial to the case of abuse or neglect of children and greatly assist in the prosecution of the guilty and the exoneration of the innocent. Delays in receiving full investigative information can hinder the ability of prosecutors to act swiftly and also curb the ability of the defense to properly prepare for cases which could deprive the defendant of due process. Members, the bill addresses these delays by requiring DFPS to forward a copy of the report of abuse or neglect upon the request of the county or district attorney within 30 days and include all information, including confidential information. The bill specifies this expedited process only applies to the most critical reports of abuse or neglect from DFPS and occurs upon request from a county or district attorney when an individual has been arrested for aggravated circumstances such as sexual assault, murder, indecency with a child, etc. To ensure confidentiality of this information, the bill specifies that the information obtained by the prosecuting attorneys from DFPS is not subject to public information requests and can only be disclosed in the discovery phase of these trials. Subject to questions, Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Birdwell moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2785. Is there objection? Hearing none, the rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2785. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2785 relating to notification and disclosure of records and information concerning an investigation of a report of child abuse or neglect.
Senator Birdwell, you're recognized for a motion.
Move passage to engrossment, Mr. President.
Senator Birdwell moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, the bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Birdwell, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Birdwell moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenbu, Hall, Hancock.
There be 31 ayes and 0 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading and final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2785. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2785 relating to notification and disclosure of records and information concerning an investigation of a report of child abuse or neglect.
Senator Birdwell, you're recognized for a motion.
Move final passage, Mr. President.
Senator Birdwell moves final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2785. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
There be 31 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President and members.
And boldly struck at the gavel for your bill. Senator Shortner, you ready? Senator Shortner, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for House Bill 3809.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business to take up and consider at this time the committee substitute to House Bill 3809. Members, this bill establishes clear requirements for the responsible decommissioning of battery energy storage facilities and protects landowners who have entered into lease agreements with battery facility operators. Specifically, the bill requires a battery energy storage agreement to define an operator's responsibility to remove the battery facility, recycle or dispose of materials, and fully restore the site once operations end with the protection of a financial assurance. Move suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute House Bill 3809.
Senator Shortner moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for House Bill 3809. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for House Bill 3809. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute House Bill 3809 relating to the removal of battery energy storage facilities.
Senator Shortner, you recognized for a motion.
I move passage third reading committee substitute House Bill 3809.
Senator Shortner moves passage third reading. There objection? Hearing none, bill is passed the third reading. Senator Shortner, you recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved, Mr. President.
Senator Schwartner moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco,
31
Campbell.
ayes, 0 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading. Final passes. Committee substitute for House Bill 3809. Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute House Bill 3809 relating to the removal of battery energy storage facilities.
Senator Schwartner, you recognized for motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage of committee substitute House Bill 3809.
Senator Schwartner moves final passage. Committee substitute for House Bill 3809. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Hagenbu, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2943.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend regular order business for Senate Bill, committee substitute for Senate Bill 2943.
Senator Hagenbu moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2943. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
22 ayes, 9 nays. Rules suspended. Chair lays out on third reading. Final passes. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2943. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitutes in Bill 2943 relating to the prohibition of certain actions by a state agency against an applicant for or holder of an occupational license.
Senator Hagenbu, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 2943.
Senator Hagenbu moves final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2943. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
22 ayes, 9 nays. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Cook, you are recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1310.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business and take up and consider the committee sub for Senate Bill 1310. Members, this bill builds upon the great work done this session to take care of our senior neighbors after Hurricane Beryl. 1310 just requires the senior living communities, so this captures all of the folks who are marketing to our seniors, develop and maintain emergency response plans that detail communication methods during disasters, so folks can keep in touch with family members, connect residents with resources like utility priority restoration, and provide information about potential evacuation options so that family and residents simply know what to expect when disaster strikes. 1310 takes us one step closer to protecting aging Texans who may live independently, but nonetheless have the right to dignity and safety during emergencies. And I move to suspend.
Senator Cook moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1310. Is there objection? There is objection. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart.
24 ayes, 7 nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute Senate Bill 1310. The secretary read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1310 relating to senior retirement communities.
Senator Cook is recognized for a motion.
I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Cook moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
24 ayes and 7 nays. Bill is passed to engrossment and will hold there. Senator Creighton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2972.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2972. It reaffirms existing law guaranteeing the rights of students and faculty to gather peacefully on college campuses. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2972, it simultaneously sets clear boundaries intended to prevent unnecessary disruption on campus to ensure the safety and continuity of its community. Governing boards may determine what areas of member campuses are considered public fora, where any member of the public can gather, and institutions will adopt their own policies governing expressive activities that allow for peaceful assemblies, protests, speeches, the distribution of written materials, the carrying of signs, the circulation of petitions, and it would prohibit the amplification devices used during class hours, building encampments, wearing a mask or facial coverings with the intent to avoid being identified or to intimidate others, and the lowering of American or Texas flags on campus in order to raise the flag of another nation or organization, and also prohibits engaging in expressive activities in the middle of the night. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2972 balances First Amendment rights of faculty, students, and staff while returning local control to university leadership to ensure order and safety on campus, to limit disruption during finals and class hours, and the ability for peace officers to keep students safe during these organized efforts. Mr. President, I move suspension of the regular order of business to take up and consider committee substitute for Senate Bill 2972.
Senator Creighton moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2972. There is objection. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
21 ayes, 10 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2972. The secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2972 relating to expressive activities at public institutions of higher education.
Following amendment, secretary read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Creighton.
Senator Creighton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is a clarifying amendment that conforms language to the legal review standard for limited public forums. I move adoption.
Questions on the adoption of floor amendment number 1? Is there objection? There is objection. No. Senator Eckhart, for what purpose?
To ask questions of the author regarding the amendment.
Senator Creighton, do you yield?
What do those standards mean? Yes, of course, I yield. Yeah.
Senator Creighton, I'm just quickly scanning this. Is this a striking of reasonable in time, place, and manner that is customary in First Amendment case law with regard to public forum?
Yes, it's just a confirmation of this particular standard for limiting public forums, and it's consistent with current case law.
So this is the overall effect of striking these words are to create a limited public forum rather than a presumed public forum?
It's tied to a limited public forum for this standard. That's correct, Senator Eckhart. And it's consistent with current case law. It's consistent with the current standard of review.
Thank you so much for answering.
Just clarifying for the bill, because the bill did not specifically say that.
And I understand. This is a language change to make clear that the intention is that this is a private space that is designated as a limited public forum rather than a presumed public forum.
That's correct.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Questions on the adoption of floor amendment number 1? Any objection? Hearing none, amendment's adopted. Senator Creighton, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment for committee substitute for Senate Bill 2972.
Senator Creighton moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
21 ayes, 10 nays. The bill is passed to engrossment and will hold there.
Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Senator Hughes, you recognize for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1073.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the regular order of business to take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 1073. Senators, this is about First Amendment rights. First Amendment declares in part, as you know, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech. Lawyers who represent clients in court and various other matters should never be compelled by the state to give up their constitutionally protected rights to freedom of speech and religion. But sadly, in 2016, the American Bar Association created a model rule for state bars to adopt that would limit the free speech of many lawyers of faith. If Texas were to adopt this overreaching rule, lawyers could lose their license based on statements that were not actually known to be or intended as harassing or discriminatory simply because someone might construe it that way. Activities could entail losing a license. Here's just a couple. Participating in a panel discussion or conversation that touches on controversial political, religious, or social viewpoints. Serving on boards of various religious or other charitable institutions, and speaking at public events. Now, while discriminatory behavior by a lawyer is already prohibited, a pattern is forming where folks with certain sincerely held beliefs are facing expulsions from their careers and their livelihoods. In Texas, we've considered legislation this session about realtors, about physicians being treated along these same lines. These are troubling situations, and they spark fear in persons of faith that they could lose their ability to make a living and provide for their families based on their religious beliefs. Senate Bill 1073 is a preemptive action to make sure that this cancel culture doesn't go any further in Texas. Prohibits the state bar from adopting any rule, policy, or penalty that unreasonably limits a person's exercise of religion or burdens their free speech. If the bar does this, a person can bring an action for injunctive relief. And of course, if a person comes before the bar based on a complaint regarding their speech or conduct, or even a judicial proceeding, this bill provides a defense to losing their license. Doesn't let them violate the law, federal or state, or disciplinary rules of professional conduct, and it does not protect a person from being fired, sued, or arrested. It is about that ability to practice law, to advocate for those who need help, whatever their views may be, no matter how popular or unpopular their views may be. First Amendment protection. That's what this bill is about, and I move suspension.
Senator Sparks, for what purpose?
Question the author.
Senator Hughes, do you yield?
Of course I'll yield.
So if I understand this correctly, this is a bill that is trying to make sure we're protecting the constitutional rights for attorneys?
It's exactly right, Senator. As you can imagine, each one of us at various times may need an attorney, and like them or not, they come in handy. And if attorneys are marginalized and are afraid to represent the unpopular, the weak, the disfavored, then we have real problems in this country.
Well, I appreciate the conversation and the clarity on this. I'm going to take this under advisement. I will likely be voting yes for this bill.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Hughes moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1073. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
23 ayes, 8 nays. The rule is suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 1073. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 1073 relating to discrimination against or burdening certain constitutional rights of an applicant for or holder of a license to practice law in this state.
Senator Hughes, you recognize for a motion.
Move passage to engrossment.
Senator Hughes moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
23 ayes, 8 nays. Bill is passed to engrossment and will hold there, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senators.
Senator Hagenbu, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2847.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the regular order of business to take up Senate Bill 2847. Members, the current Texas Education Code requires each institution of higher education to adopt 42 semester credit hours core curriculum. This total is at the top of the core curriculum requirements among our neighboring states. Examples of other states currently recruiting our high school students include Louisiana with 39 hours, Arkansas and Kansas with 35 hours, and Mississippi with 30 hours. The Texas 42-hour requirement provides consistency and well-rounded education, may also unintentionally lengthen the time to degree completion and slow pathways to meet growing workforce demands, especially for students pursuing workforce-oriented bachelor's programs which prioritize applied technical or specialized training over a broad education. For these specialized training areas, this also puts the state at a competitive disadvantage in meeting the growing workforce needs of Texas and limits the flexibility of our higher education institutions in equipping these students for Texas jobs. Legislation passed in the last session allows for reduced core curriculum for associate's degrees, but does not do so for bachelor's degrees programs. Senate Bill 2847 amends statute to approve core curriculum of fewer than 42 semester credit hours for bachelor's degree programs if the reduction accelerates students' completion of workforce-aligned credentials as defined by board rule. This change aligns our institutions of higher education offering bachelor's degrees to the same flexibility and targeted job-relevant skills along with the reduced time to graduation that was established as an option for associate degree programs last session. With that, I move for suspension.
Senator West, what purpose?
Question of the author.
Senator Hagenbu, do you yield?
Of course, yes.
Senator Hagenbu, this is a continuation of our discussion about this bill, and more specifically, on the second page, the last section, B1, the board by rule may approve a core curriculum of fewer than 42 semester credit hours. That language right there. How do you envision, when we say the board, we're talking about the Higher Education Coordinating Board, correct?
Correct.
Okay, are we talking about when a university, a particular university may come to the Higher Education Coordinating Board and ask that they approve a degree that requires less than 42 semester credit hours?
Yes, that's the way this is expected to work.
And the issue that I raised with you, does that create a hodgepodge effect as it relates to our institutions of higher education? One institution requiring more than 42 hours and another one requiring less than 42 hours. Talk to me about that.
Yes, sir, yeah. I wouldn't characterize it as a hodgepodge by any means at all. What it is doing is allowing us to tailor some degrees based on the modern workforce demands. So we talked about this. If it's a liberal arts degree, of course that's a broad education. We're not going to reduce that from 42 hours. But if you're talking about a specific engineering degree but taking, let's say 36 core hours, and the university comes to the coordinating board and says, hey, we think, we're seeing that Lockheed Martin or somebody is asking us for engineers with more higher level engineering courses, and to do that, you need to take, say, 36 core hours, and the university comes to the coordinating board and asks for that. The coordination board considers it and says, yeah, that makes sense. That's the opportunity to reduce the core curriculum to make that major tailored more to what the workforce needs are of our modern economy.
And that's exactly what we were talking about. So if University A goes to the Higher Education Coordinating Board and the coordinating board approves the reduction to less than 42 semester credit hours for that particular degree, if other institutions have the same or similar type of degree, would it apply to those universities also, or just to that particular university that made the application?
So the coordinating board would have the option of applying it to all, say, that specific engineering degree. Maybe it's electrical engineering, for example, or they could just do it for a specific university. What I think it'll do is create an effect, an entrepreneurial type effect with our universities, where they're sensitive to the needs of the modern workforce marketplace. They'll come up with ideas to adjust their curriculum. It'll have to get approved by the coordinating board, and other universities will see that and have an opportunity to, say, hey, that was a good idea. Let's do that with our electrical engineering degree as well, for example.
Well, let's be real clear. The language in your bill, does it give, in the amendment here, does it give the board that flexibility to do that? So if they approve University A, does it give them the flexibility in order to approve it for all universities that have same or similar programs without the necessity of those other universities coming to the Higher Education Coordinating Board? And if so, where's the language in here that does that?
Yeah, the way our intent at least was that they could have the Coordination Board has some flexibility. They can do it for specific university. They could choose to do it across that same degree for.
I understand that's your intent.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking, where's the language that manifests your intent to be able to do that that's in this bill?
Yeah. Well, our at least what we're trying to do there was have that be what's portrayed in the language. I think you're thinking it does not say that in there, but I think it does.
And I'm for your bill.
Yeah.
And I'm for what your intent is, but I don't believe it's in the bill. And so the question is it any way that we can make certain that it's in the bill that the coordinating board has this flexibility before we pass it out of this chamber?
I have an amendment after this that provides for the advisory committee, which is parallel with Senator Creighton's.
At all due respect, the advisory committee is not, and I'm for that too.
Yeah.
But all due respect, the advisory committee is separate and apart from this particular section of your bill. And if you want to make certain that the coordinating board has that flexibility, which I believe it should have, as opposed to having all the universities having to come to it and say, me too, because that's what you're saying. Then
No, I think the way that I read it, at least, is that the coordinating board could make it for that specialization, that degree.
All right, help
They chose
how you read it. Where is it so I can better understand where that language is in this bill?
That's the way I read it, at least, the way that I read the language.
You're saying that this language gives the university the flexibility it needs?
I believe yes, if the coordinating board has some flexibility there. It's not across all degrees, not across all universities. The way that I believe it's going to work is the university is going to bring a proposal to the coordinating board who will make a decision on whether that makes sense or not for a given degree for that university.
Okay, this is a Senate bill, correct?
Yes.
All right, so we can continue to work on it.
Yeah, sure can. I'd be happy to. Yes. Yep.
And again, the whole purpose is in making certain that the way that you're reading it is in fact.
Which we want to get right, and I agree with your question.
Get it right.
So, yeah.
And make sure the coordinating board knows that it has flexibility, that if it proves an engineering program of less than 42 hours from University A, it can turn around and do it for the same universities across the state of Texas with the same or similar program.
I think it's a good point.
That's your intent?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. We can work on that in the House bill if we
very good.
Get your input on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Senator Hagenbu moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2847. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
23 ayes, 8 nays. Rule is suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 2847. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 2847, relating to innovations in core curriculum to accelerate the award of bachelor's degrees.
Following amendment, Secretary read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Hagenbu.
Senator Hagenbu, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment duplicates language included in Chairman Creighton's Senate Bill 37. It enhances Senate Bill 2847 to provide for the establishment of an advisory committee by the Texas Higher Education Board to review the general education curriculum requirements of the institution's higher education, including considering methods of determining general education component courses and for condensing the number of required courses. As you may recall from SB 37, the advisory committee is required to complete the review during the interim and report recommendations back to the legislature by December 31st, 2026. With that, Mr. President, I move adoption.
Questions on the adoption of floor amendment number 1? Is there objection? Hearing none, the amendment is adopted. Senator Hagenbu, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Hagenbu moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Cameron.
23 ayes, 8 nays. The bill is passed to engrossment and will hold there, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Change.
Senator Zaffarini recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2344.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business in order to take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 2344 relating to the placement of telephone corporation facilities in the right-of-way of certain county roads. Members, this is a bill that would apply only to a county with a population less than 75,000 in a standard metropolitan statistical area with a population of more than 1.5 million. It would require Commissioners Court approval before telephone companies could install infrastructure in county road rights-of-way, provided a decision is rendered within 10 business days. Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Zaffarini moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2344. Is there objection? Hearing none, the rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 2344. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 2344 relating to the placement of telephone corporation facilities in the right-of-way of certain county roads.
Senator Zaffarini recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Zaffarini moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, the bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Zaffarini recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional three-day rule.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the constitutional rule that bills be heard on 3 several days.
Senator Zaffarini moves suspension of the three-day rule. Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Rules suspended. Chair lays out on third reading final passage Senate Bill 2344. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 2344 relating to the placement of telephone corporation facilities in the right-of-way of certain county roads.
Senator Zaffarini recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage.
Senator Zaffarini moves final passage Senate Bill 2344. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2532.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business to take up and consider committee substitute for Senate Bill 2532. Members, this is a property tax rate calculation bill that will ensure if hotel occupancy tax dollars are used to fund city-mandated expenditures, then taxpayers should benefit and their rate should be lowered under SB 2. Since its creation by the legislature in 1963, the Galveston Parks Board of Trustees has served as a steward of tourism, beach maintenance, and coastal infrastructure on Galveston Island. The board, approved by voters, operates as a legally distinct entity from the city of Galveston and is primarily funded through municipal hotel occupancy taxes. These hot taxes are statutorily restricted under Chapter 351 of the Tax Code to uses that directly promote tourism and enhance the visitor experience, such as advertising, beach cleanup, and public amenities. Specifically, the bill introduces the concept of misspent hotel occupancy tax revenue. If the city diverts hot taxes away from its statutorily allowed uses, that amount is factored into the city's voter approval tax rate calculation, thereby reducing the city's property tax rate for local taxpayers, which of course benefits local taxpayers. The bill specifies that city expenditures which are lawfully authorized under Chapter 351 are not unintentionally affected, and examples of those authorized expenditures are beach renourishment, convention center, trickle down, and the city trolley as examples, and I do have an amendment.
Senator Hinojosa Hidalgo, for what purpose?
Will Senator yield for questions?
Senator Middleton, do you yield?
I do yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Middleton, is this a local bill, a regional bill, or a statewide bill?
This only applies, of course, to Galveston Island because it has a Parks Board of Trustees. Okay. So it doesn't apply to your district.
Thank you for the clarification.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2532. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
22 ayes, 9 nays. Rule is suspended. Chair lays out on second reading. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2532. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2532 relating to the calculation of the voter approval tax rate for certain municipalities that receive municipal hotel occupancy tax revenue.
Following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Middleton.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment returns the name of misspent funds to misspent hotel occupancy tax revenue, as it was in the original as-filed version. Additionally, the amendment fixes a drafting oversight by requiring the misspent funds to be spent by the municipality, not just received. So in other words, when they have custody of the hot tax funds, it doesn't count against them in the formula, and I move adoption.
Senator Hinojosa Hidalgo, for what purpose?
Will Senator yield for questions?
Senator Middleton, do you yield?
I do yield.
And thank you, Senator Middleton, for clarifying my first question I had, which is this is more of a regional bill. But I also agree with you in a sense that hotel occupancy tax funds are for specific purposes. And we do have cities who are spending those funds for other purposes not related to for which we pass legislation for the expenditure of occupancy hotel tax. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, and that's the goal is if these hotel occupancy tax funds are going to be spent in a way outside of Chapter 351, which is the authorized uses, then the local taxpayers should benefit from that, and we should factor that into the SB2 calculation to lower their tax rate.
Thank you, Senator Middleton.
Thank you.
Questions on the adoption of floor amendment number 1. Is there objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Senator Middleton, you recognize for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Middleton moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
22 ayes, 9 nays. Bill is passed to engrossment and will hold there. Senator Betancourt, you recognize for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 510.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. This is a continuation of yesterday's discussion about Senate Bill 510, which is a continuation of if you don't do the work, you don't get paid on Chapter 19 funds for voter registration. I move suspension of the regular order of business. Take up and consider Senate Bill 510.
Senator Betancourt moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 510. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
20 ayes, 11 nays. Rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading, final passage, Senate Bill 510. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 510, relating to the failure of a voter registrar to comply with voter registration laws.
Senator Betancourt, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage of Senate Bill 510.
Senator Betancourt moves final passage, Senate Bill 510. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
20 ayes, 11 nays. Bill is finally passed.
Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2600.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business and take and consider Senate Bill 2600. Senate Bill 2600 is about fairness for students and parents and student safety as well. Right now, some school districts charge families hundreds of dollars just to put their child on a school bus, even though those families already pay property taxes, and the district is receiving state transportation funding. In my district, for example, there's an ISD where fees start at $640 per student. And if families can't afford that, young children may be left to walk nearly 2 miles through dangerous intersections and high traffic areas where, of course, it's not safe for them to do that. The bill says that if a district takes the state transportation allotment, it cannot also charge parents for that same service. It creates a strong incentive for districts to apply for the existing hazardous route funding before passing costs on to families. And to be clear, in most cases, buses are already passing these homes. All we're saying is that if you're taking state money, don't double charge the families who already paid for it. And Senate Bill 2600 puts safety for students first, taxpayers first, and it's just common sense. I move suspension.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 2600. Is there objection? Hearing none. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 2600. Secretary read the caption.
Senate Bill 2600 relating to a fee charged by a school district for the transportation of a student who lives within 2 miles of the school.
Senator Middleton recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, move passage to engrossment.
Senator Middleton moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none. Bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Middleton recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
30 ayes, 1 nay. The rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading final passage Senate Bill 2600. The Secretary read the caption.
Senate Bill 2600 relating to the fee charged by a school district for the transportation of a student who lives within 2 miles of the school the student attends.
Senator Middleton, you recognized for a motion.
Move final passage.
Senator Middleton moves final passage Senate Bill 2600. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
30 ayes, 1 nay. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations. Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1835.
Mr. President, so moved.
Senator Sparks moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute Senate Bill 1835. There is objection. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
20 ayes, 11 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading final passage committee substitute Senate Bill 1835. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1835 relating to the maximum number of non-resident scholarship students permitted to pay resident tuition and fees at certain public institutions of higher education.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 1835.
Senator Sparks moves final passage committee substitute for Senate Bill 1835. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
20 ayes, 11 nays. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Zaffarini, you are recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 3047.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business in order to take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 3047 relating to the creation of the Pura Vida Municipal Management District Number 1. Senate Bill 3047 would help address the area's infrastructure needs, supporting the development of housing while ensuring local consent and accountability in the financing process. It reflects the standard template language. Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Zaffarini moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 3047. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco,
27
Campbell.
ayes, 4 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 3047. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 3047 relating to the creation of the Pura Vida Municipal Management District Number 1.
Senator Zaffarini recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Zaffarini moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook,
27 ayes, 4 nays. Bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Zaffarini recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the constitutional rule that bills be heard on 3 several days.
Senator Zaffarini moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
27 ayes, 4 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading. Final passage, Senate Bill 3047. Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 3047 relating to the creation of the Pura Vida Municipal Management District Number 1.
Senator Zaffarini recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage.
Senator Zaffarini moves final passage, Senate Bill 3047. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
27 ayes, 4 nays. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Senator Hughes, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1163.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the regular order of business to take up and consider at this time Senate Bill 1163. Senators, this has to do with the appraisal review process. There are many protections in the government code for taxpayers who are appealing their appraisals. However, there is no protection for that property owner who finds themselves with two hearings, two appointments at the same time. That's never come up before, never been addressed, and it's been a problem for property owners. So this straightforward bill just says that when you're representing yourself in these matters and you have two overlapping hearings, they have to work with you to reschedule. There's a friendly amendment from Senator Cook. If the Senate sees fit to suspend, that's what the bill does. It's a pro-property owner bill, and I move suspension.
Senator Hughes moves suspension of the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1163. Is there objection? Hearing none, rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 1163. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 1163, relating the circumstances under which an appraisal review board is required to postpone a protest hearing.
Following an amendment, Secretary read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Cook.
Senator Cook, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment makes it clear that this good cause exception does not apply to hired property tax consultants who should be able to make appointments. If you've been hired by a property owner to dutifully represent them in these hearings, you shouldn't be postponing hearings because you may have overbooked yourself. This still allows property owners to designate another agent, such as a family member or other party, who could show good cause if there was a scheduling conflict. So thank you so much, Senator Hughes, for working on this with me, and I move adoption.
Senator Hughes, you're recognized.
Mr. President, the amendment is acceptable to the author.
Questions on the adoption of floor amendment number 1. It is acceptable to the author. Is there any objection? Hearing none, amendment's adopted. Senator Hughes, you're recognized for a motion.
I move passes to engrossment.
Senator Hughes moves passes to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none, the bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Hughes, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Mr. President, that's my motion.
Senator Hughes moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
30 ayes on 1 nay. Rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading. Final passage of Senate Bill 1163. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 1163, relating the circumstances under which an appraisal review board is required to postpone a protest hearing.
Senator Hughes, you're recognized for a motion.
I move final passage.
Senator Hughes moves final passage. Senate Bill 1163. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
30 ayes and 1 nay. The bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senators.
Senator Creighton. Senator Creighton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2619.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, the role of a school board trustee is not only ceremonial, it's foundational to the health and success of a public school district. Trustees govern complex organizations, they manage multi-million-dollar budgets, and set strategic priorities for student outcomes. In too many districts, governance has been reactive and fragmented and sometimes unaccountable. Senate Bill 2619 is about restoring that accountability. If we're serious about closing achievement gaps and increasing educational outcomes in the classroom, we have to start in the boardroom. Senate Bill 2619 targets districts that are chronically underperforming. I'm not talking about districts missing the mark for a single year, but school districts that are failing year after year and compounding harm to students in some of our state's most vulnerable communities. In 2024 alone, almost 41,000 students were enrolled in failing districts, a sharp increase from the year before. This legislation requires automatic and immediate school board elections for chronically underperforming districts. If a district earns an F accountability rating on 2 consecutive years, all sitting trustees' terms must expire, and their positions will open up for election.
Senator West, for what purpose?
Question of the author.
Senator Creighton, do you yield?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm going to hold right there to clarify something with my team. Thank you.
We'll hold for just a moment.
Yes, of course, I yield. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator West, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senator Creighton, I want to make certain that we emphasize this bill and what the bill does, because we're talking about potential removal of elected officials, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Under what circumstances, and is this an automatic removal or is this a vote to remove?
Well, it would trigger an election in the following year after 2 Fs for the district. So the public would have the opportunity to keep the same board, but it would allow the public within that period of time to grade papers on those that are in charge.
And this would be triggered if a school district had how many years of failing grades, and those failing grades being F
That'd
and
be
Ds?
2 consecutive.
Fs, Ds, and Fs,
That's
correct?
right. So that would relate to a small number of districts today, but it would make sure that if it's consistent, that if 2 Fs, not Ds, are awarded to the district based on the performance of the district 2 consecutive years in a row, then it would allow the public to make a change in leadership on the board.
And let's talk, and I'm not trying to talk as deaf because I'm supportive of it, but I think it's important that we stop for a few moments and talk about this. Why should we hold the school board trustees accountable for this?
Well, they're elected officials. They're charged with
Hire the superintendent.
With their duties, right? They're charged with running the. They're charged with not only overseeing the performance of the district. They hire the superintendent. They have public hearings related to the performance of the district and student outcomes and the way that the dollars are managed. There's many different obligations of a school board trustee, which that's why the bill also deals with training. As Senator West, you and I both know, and it's not intentional, but school finance is complex, and these different laws that we pass related to school districts and how they must perform and carry out their duties. It takes a trustee that's willing and understanding that their obligations to dive in on these policies and understand the decisions they're making, because our students are ultimately benefiting or losing from lack of direction or strong direction from these board members, and the accountability stops with them.
I don't need to say anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator West.
Senator Hancock, for what purpose?
To ask author a few questions.
Senator Creighton, do you yield?
Of course.
Yeah, Senator Creighton, I thank you for this. I don't know if you're aware of recently having a meeting regarding Fort Worth ISD in my district, which is a difficult situation. And I've been watching that as a school board member for 13 years, and then being here beyond. The students languishing in a district that has underperformed for years and years. And what a lot of people, I think, that don't serve in that capacity, that have never served on a school board, understand, as Senator West has pointed out, is that while we have a superintendent, the true CEO of that district is the board themselves. The superintendent's only allowed to lead in the manner that the board allows them to lead. And, I've watched districts that have underperformed up in the Senate District 9. In fact, what's happened this time, as the state has taken over or is looking at taking over Fort Worth ISD because of really 7 years of failure, because they took them to court, so it delayed everything 2 more years. Would it surprise you to know that every single incumbent that ran for Fort Worth ISD was reelected in the midst of the state coming in and having to take over a district that was underperforming?
It wouldn't surprise me. I've been tracking the same, and I appreciate your comments on it.
And my concern, as you look at putting a board of directors over, as we've done in Houston, is that school board sits there. And the work and the benefit and the growth that we've seen in Houston, you've got to have some separation. And so I think this bill allows for that separation rather than the board coming in. And yes, you still have an elected school board sitting there, essentially getting credit for the improvement this board of directors that the state has put in place is making. And I think when you have that repetitive underperformance, 2 Fs, that it does make pretty much common sense that the voters with this new additional knowledge should have the opportunity to push a reset on who's going to govern that board from an elected standpoint. Would you agree with that's the intent of this legislation?
I completely agree. I think your comments and references to the importance of the accountability tied to the expectations of the board are right in line with the intent and the spirit of the bill. Your reference to Houston ISD, members, a year ago, Houston ISD had 121 DNF rated schools. Under new accountability, new curriculum, new teaching methods, and a new process that starts with leadership, there are no longer 121 DNF rated schools. 1 year later, it's less than 41 schools are rated DNF. Think about that difference in 1 year. And so we have to make sure that the excuses are set aside and that the kids are first. These students are first, no matter how difficult the decision must be or may be, no matter what adult or institution or policy may be offended by it, we have to make sure kids are first. And Senator Hancock, your points are well taken.
Senator Creighton, I appreciate you for bringing this bill. I think it's very thoughtful. You cut my lunch short because I did want to come and speak on this as a board member, recognizing how important it is. Because the boards in these districts, they are the ones ultimately responsible and ultimately determine the role of that superintendent that they hire. So thank you very much.
Senator Hancock, you've had many years of experience on school boards and also here in the legislature. I appreciate your comments on this legislation.
Senator West, what purpose?
One other question of the author.
You yield, Senator Creighton.
Always.
Senator Creighton, how do we, and I don't know that we can as a legislature, how do we provide the impetus to make certain that voters know why the board members are standing again for re-election? How do we make certain that voters know that the reason this election is being called is because the district, under the direction of the trustees for 2 consecutive years, the district has received 2 failing grades? How do we make certain of that, or can we at this level?
Senator West, if the media is not covering it, I think it's incumbent upon us as elected officials for our own districts to make sure that our constituents understand they have an opportunity to make a selection on the board, whether it be those same incumbents again or new choices that are on the ballot. But we have to work together in our communities to make sure that these opportunities are understood. And every election requires that. So it would be the same. It would be very similar. It would be organic, and it would be right there at home. If you have suggestions on how to promote that, we can work on that in other legislation or in the future. But I think if anything we know is true, when you're talking about someone's child and how they may or may not have what they need in school and their tax dollars, there's going to be awareness that's organic.
Let me ask this other question. Because of the lateness of the legislative hour, this is a Senate bill. What's the probability of us being able to get this, making certain the House understands the significance of this bill, maybe not the other ones, but this one for certain, and getting it through the legislative process? How do we assist you in making certain that that happens?
I think if we had a bipartisan request for the leadership in the House to make this bill a top priority, I believe there's plenty of time to get this bill passed.
I think that the bipartisan support would be as a result of showing our support for this particular bill and to get ready to leave this chamber, and for maybe a delegation of us going over and stressing the importance.
That last part as well, that delegation you just mentioned, I'd be very interested in that and very thankful for it, and I think it would make the difference.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator West.
Senator Hinojosa Hidalgo, for what purpose?
Well, Senator, yield for questions?
Senator Creighton, do you yield?
Of course.
Thank you, Senator Creighton. And actually, the exchange between you and Senator West was provided a lot of clarity what the goals are of this bill. And in my Senate district, unfortunately, we've had situations where the school boards have been very negligent, and some members of the school board have been indicted. Yet they keep getting reelected. And one of the school districts in particular had TEA taken over, and they assigned a management board. And my point is this: if you have schools that are rated F 2 years in a row, and you have an election, those who run for office who are trying to replace the school members who are responsible actually for the F grade of the schools, they'll find out through the campaign
It will.
who the opponent is, people that really are interested in learning the responsibilities of a board, that don't want to be a board member just to see ways of placing their friends in proper contracts and provide them there with some of the benefits that they see as a result of being an elected official that has control over millions and millions and millions of dollars in contracts. It's a real issue. I know your bill doesn't cover all those issues that we're facing and the challenges we're facing with school boards, but it really goes a long way in trying to focus on the education of our kids and their need for school boards that are responsible, that are focused on what is best for the students, not necessarily on other interests.
Well, thank you, Senator Hinojosa. You've been a leader in education and strong advocate for our public schools for so many years, and the training that's involved in this legislation and also the accountability side of it, I believe it's an incredible step forward, and I appreciate your support and comments.
And you also have provision there with superintendents.
That's exactly right.
Which I think is very much needed in the process. Many superintendents are hired without many times doing the proper background check and as to the proper qualifications.
That's exactly right. There's a transparency provision, members, in the bill where when a school board is hiring a new superintendent, that they make it very public to those paying close attention to that hiring process, the background of that superintendent, the track record that they have in their particular district, and the decision-making process in bringing them on board. It lets the public know, what was involved in that hiring.
I agree, and thank you, Senator Creighton.
Thank you, Senator Hinojosa.
Senator Betancourt, for what purpose?
Ask questions of the author.
Senator Creighton, do you yield?
Of course, I yield.
Great bill, as usual, Senator Creighton, and importantly, there isn't a link to accountability. So it is really critical for measures like this to have a functioning A through F system in the state, is it not?
That's correct.
Right, because without that link to accountability, then Senator Hancock's questions and others would have the tendency to fray over time. Because as they pointed out, if you have a group that has been replaced by 5 years and you didn't have an A through F system, then that type of accountability ranking would be, arbitrary. It would be by opinion. It would not be by what gets measured gets fixed. True?
That's true.
Right. So for bills like this to work, the important point is that we need that continuing A through F ratings brought out, just like we, in a court case recently, the 22-23 year had been released, and I'm hoping the courts will proceed to rule the 23-24 year data. But going forward, that's a really important point for all public education and for a bill like this, right?
I'm thankful for all of your hard work on the accountability rate system itself, Senator Betancourt, over the years, especially this session. I'm firmly convinced that accountability for public schools, those that are thriving and those that are even struggling, that accountability system is positive and good for all public schools because it lets them know when the community needs to help, when the legislature needs to help, when there needs to be adjustments. And at the end of the day, the kids will win and not be left behind.
Right, because it's really all about the kids, but it's that A through F system tells the public, and importantly the parents and the students themselves, what's happening in their own school or their own school district.
That's right.
So thank you so much for the bill.
Thank you, Senator Betancourt.
Senator Creighton moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2619. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
22 ayes, 9 nays. Rules suspended. Chair lays out on second reading. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2619. Secretary read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2619 relating to certain accountability-related policies and procedures related to public schools.
Following amendment. Secretary read the amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 1 by Creighton.
Senator Creighton, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment addresses the transition of school board trustees in districts under electoral review. It clarifies that 1 year after receiving notice of electoral intervention, the terms of all sitting trustees would expire. These vacancies will be filled in the next regular election, and trustees elected to fill these positions will draw lots to establish staggered terms consistent with state law. Members, essentially, this is a clarifying amendment to make sure what was vague in the bill is now more clear. Move adoption.
Questions on the adoption floor amendment number 1? Is there objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Senator Creighton recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, move passage to engrossment for committee substitute for Senate Bill 2619.
Senator Creighton moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
23 ayes, 8 nays. The bill is passed to engrossment and will hold there. Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2446.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I move this time to suspend the regular order of business in order to take up and consider committee substitute for Senate Bill 2446. This legislation is about increasing transparency and accountability for our local mental health authorities. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 2446 provides several statutory cleanups and some new reforms to the governance of local mental health authorities. This legislation statutorily requires every local mental health authority to have a governing board and prohibits those employed by a local mental health authority from serving on the governing body. These two elements are basically already in practice. This is just going to put it in statute. The committee substitute also requires local mental health authorities to submit an electronic monthly expense report to members of the governing board, including ex officio members. It also requires local mental health authorities to have a public member on the board with business experience, and that at least one voting member of the governing body be a sheriff or representative of a sheriff's office. With that, Mr. President, I move suspension.
Senator Sparks moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2446. Is there objection? Hearing none. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 2446. The Secretary read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2446 relating to the composition of the governing bodies of local mental health authorities.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage to engrossment.
Senator Sparks moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none. Bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3A rule.
So moved.
Senator Sparks moves suspension of the 3-day rule. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
30 ayes, 1 nay. Rule is suspended. Chair lays out on third reading. Final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2446. The secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2446 relating to the composition of the governing bodies of local mental health authorities.
Senator Sparks, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move final passage for committee substitute for Senate Bill 2446.
Senator Sparks moves final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2446. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook.
30 ayes, 1 nay. Bill is finally passed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator West for recognition.
Mr. President and members, the Senate Ladies Club have elected new officers, and I would be remiss if I didn't introduce you to the new officers and some of the past officers. To my left is a young lady by the name of Carol West, who's the new president. I was fortunate to be able to marry her some 37 years ago. And to her immediate left is the new vice president, Amanda Hinojosa. And so I'd ask us to give them a hand. Where's her? Well, congratulations, ladies.
Senator Hinojosa Hidalgo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator West, for your recognition. As you well know, our wives, Miss Senator West and Miss Senator Amanda Hinojosa, they work very hard, very much active. Of course, it's going to increase our workload at home, but that's okay. But I do want to congratulate both Carol and Amanda for the fine work and the leadership they've shown in working with the Senate Ladies Club in making this institution a better institution for all of us. So thank both of you. Congratulations.
Senator Zaffarini on the recognition.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it's my pleasure to join Senator West and Senator Hinojosa in congratulating and recognizing the Senate ladies, most especially Carol West and Amanda Hinojosa, who join us on the floor today. These women are truly amazing. They are so supportive of the members of the Senate, not only their own spouses, but all of us. Whenever we need help, whenever we're interested in a project, we turn to the Senate ladies, and they are truly parts of our lives. They enjoy the process, and they enjoy watching their spouses at work, but we are always glad to work with them, and I'm delighted that every woman senator is also a member of the Texas Senate Ladies, and for that we are so proud and so grateful that you have included us in the process. They always take every opportunity to remind us that only 25 women have served in the Texas Senate in the history of the state of Texas, along with 954 men. But with those 954 men, we have often had wonderful women by their sides, women like Carol and like Amanda and others. We also have an outgoing president today, Senator Bob Hall's wife, and she has done a wonderful job. Kay has been a wonderful president and has worked very, very hard. So today she turns the gavel over to Carol, and Carol and Amanda, I know we are in good hands with you taking the new leadership role. Thank you to you, and thank you to all the outgoing officers. Congratulations to the incoming officers. I'm proud to be a Senate lady. Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Chair recognizes Senator Paxton on the recognition.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I may be the only person, certainly on the floor, but maybe ever, that actually has been a member of the Senate Ladies as a spouse, but also as a lady senator. And so I have a deep appreciation for what the group has done for the members from both sides. And I just want to thank you for everything you've done. Congratulations to Carol, to Amanda. Great thanks to Kay for all of her work. But God bless you as you continue the work of this wonderful organization and supporting those of us that are here. We appreciate you. God bless you.
Senator Creighton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1950.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move suspension of the regular order of business to take up and consider committee substitute for Senate Bill 1950.
Senator Creighton moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 1950. There is objection. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
20 ayes, 11 nays. Rules suspended. Chair lays out on third reading. Final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1950. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1950 relating to the eligibility of certain individuals for unemployment benefits.
Senator Creighton recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, move final passage of committee substitute for Senate Bill 1950.
Senator Creighton moves final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1950. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
20 ayes, 11 nays. Bill is finally passed. Senator West. Senator West, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 582.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move to suspend the Senate regular order of business to take up and consider Senate Bill 582. Members, currently, if a school district or charter school is subject to a special investigation, TEA may settle a case prior to the issuance of a final investigative report, which is a public record. However, the settlement agreements are not publicly available, resulting in a lack of transparency when investigations are closed following a settlement. This particular bill was negotiated with TEA and requires that any agreement resulting in sanctions against a district or charter school be released under the Open Records Act, Chapter 552 of the Texas Government Code. The agreement must include the specific allegations made by TEA that resulted in the investigation being open and any factual agreed to by both parties. This bill represents a common sense legislative solution to ensure the taxpayers of the state of Texas have transparency in public school investigations and sanctions by the agency. Move to suspend the regular order of business.
Senator West moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 582. There is objection. Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
28 ayes, 3 nays. Rules suspended. Chair lays out on second reading. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 582. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 582 relating to certain agreements arising out of special investigations conducted by the Texas Education Agency.
Senator West, you're recognized for a motion.
Move passage to engrossment.
Senator West moves passage to engrossment. There is objection. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
28 ayes, 3 nays. Bill is passed to engrossment. Senator West, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So move.
Senator West moves suspension of the 3-day rule. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
28 ayes, 3 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading final passage. Committee substitute Senate Bill 582. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 582 relating to certain agreements arising out of special investigations conducted by the Texas Education Agency.
Senator West, you're recognized for a motion.
Move final passage of Senate Bill 582.
Senator West moves final passage. Committee substitute Senate Bill 582. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
28 ayes, 3 nays. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2403.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the Senate's regular order of business to take and consider committee substitute Senate Bill 2403. The Texas Ethics Commission was created to safeguard the public's trust in government, to ensure that elected officials, candidates, and lobbyists operate under clear ethical standards and transparent reporting rules, but a system that punishes minor mistakes while allowing serious misconduct to slip through the cracks fails in that core mission. Right now, the complaint process is often too arbitrary, opaque, and unbalanced, and public servants can be dragged through drawn-out investigations over clerical errors, while major violations can sit unexamined for months. The process has become more about checking boxes than delivering accountability. Senate Bill 2403 is about putting integrity back at the center of the Ethics Commission enforcement. It's about prioritizing real misconduct over technical infractions and ending the weaponization of the complaint process and shining the light in dark corners that have persisted for too long. The bill reflects a simple, principled issue that in Texas, ethics enforcement should be fair, focused, and above all, accountable to the people that it serves. This bill introduces several key reforms to improve the structure, enforcement, and prioritization, and procedural fairness of the Commission. It creates a formal three-tier system for categorizing violations: Category 1, technical; Category 2, standard; Category 3, serious. And it directs the Commission to adopt a written risk-based policy for prioritizing complaints and restructures preliminary review hearings by requiring bipartisan panels and expands the respondent's response window from 10 to 30 days. And I have two amendments.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the regular order of business. Senator Campbell, for what purpose?
To ask the author some questions, or a question.
Senator Middleton, do you yield?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, of course, I had a Texas Ethics Commission bill, which actually directed, and the committee substitute, which we didn't hear, but it directed Texas Ethics Commission to look at those who are running for office or who hold office or who have a lobbying complaint against them.
Right.
And set up a consequence if they do not pay their fines. So is your bill addressing any of the people who have actual infractions against them, violations, or have been issued, a violation? Or is it more punitive on the Texas Ethics Commission? I'm trying to figure out, it sounds like you're setting up a method by which the violations could be categorized, or a more serious consequence put on one that someone who has repeated violations. We know there's somebody out there that's got a $70,000 bill or a bunch of fines. So tell me how your bill differs or adds a consequence, or more details really about the bill, if you would.
Right. So thank you for your work on that, Senator Campbell. Obviously, we've talked a lot about it. It's important to both of us, and we wanted to make sure, like we heard in the Sunset Commission hearings, where you have minor, activists and people putting out yard signs and Save the Community Center, and we don't want to use the Texas Ethics Commission to go after that. These are innocent actors that make an innocent mistake, and those are de minimis violations. What we want to do is make sure the sophisticated parties like elected officials and lobbyists are held accountable, right? Especially on the repeat violators. So that's why we created that tier 1, 2, and 3, that 3-category system, and obviously it charges the commission with creating a fee structure based on that. And one of the factors they have to look at is evidence of previous non-compliance, right? So whether or not they've complied or not complied with the Ethics Commission rules in the past, how many violations they've had. So those are some of the factors and elements that they take into consideration under this new structure.
So the Sunset's recommending first set up a structure so that they don't get the little ladies who the neighbor complains about a sign they put up in their yard, that we can minimize that, but then still focus on those who are repeated violators. So does your bill provide consequences for the violators? Give some teeth to the TEC?
Yes, so this creates a penalty structure according to the Ethics Commission to do that based on the various categories that we're adopting under this committee substitute. And obviously, before it was just the 2 categories, right? It was de minimis and then category 2. That didn't really work very well, as you've seen, with your particular piece of legislation. So we wanted to make sure that you get elevated to that 3rd category, right? If someone is a repeat offender, serious offender of the rules we put in place, and those are for transparency, right? For Texans to see. And these aren't suggestions, right? I mean, we don't pass things in here where it's just, hey, we suggest you follow the law. No, you need to follow the law, period.
What in the bill provides teeth or some actual consequence that can follow up? Because right now, they can turn it over to the Attorney General, right? Is there any other avenue by which they can have enforcement of the fines that they levy?
Yes, so through the penalty structure, but also the State Office of Administrative Hearings. So we're bringing that into the bill, and that will be obviously an adjudication, which is important. It's due process in that as well.
Yes.
So we're elevating this this penalty structure and bringing in SOA, which I think will help hold them accountable for these repeated violations.
With this, does the Texas Ethics Commission then contact SOA and say, for instance, somebody's had this fine, 2 different fines for a lobbying a violation, and they haven't paid it? And would TEC have to contact SOA, and SOA then take action or investigate, or how would that work by the bill?
So it's one of the methods. So the first assumes that there is a finding, right? You have a preliminary hearing. The bill changes it a little bit where we have just 2 members of the Ethics Commission on the preliminary hearing in order to help expedite these things so they don't drag on forever instead of the full commission. But then at that point, after that preliminary hearing, that's when they can be referred to SOA to have that case adjudicated before SOA.
Thank you. One last question. Does your bill address those who have been on the rolls that have violations for years?
That's a factor that they get to consider, and we're explicit in that. We wanted to make sure that in forming this new structure, that the Ethics Commission is charged at reviewing repeat violations by somebody. So in other words, they have to look at that and consider that when they're deciding what type of penalty to assess, whether it's a category 1, 2, or 3 violation. So they're mandated to look at that particular issue that I know you've worked a lot on.
Yes. Are they going to go back? Like, for instance, if somebody right now has, say, $10,000, 2 $5,000 violations.
Right.
Will Texas Ethics Commission go back and look at these folks?
Yes,
they're not like grandfathered from some kind of review.
Right. They'll have to consider that exact
But
scenario.
not if they have a new violation added to it, looking at the old, but actually addressing the old ones that they have.
That'll be considered, the old violations would be considered if they committed a new violation.
Only if they commit a new one. So
right,
are
so
they,
look back.
by this bill, the sunset bill, are they just, is it past history, and there's no accountability? They don't have to address, they don't have to pay the fine?
This doesn't change any of the existing penalties that have been levied, right, against, it doesn't absolve anyone of that. It doesn't clear the deck. Those are all still out there. Those are all still pending. Okay. And those can all be still fully enforced to the full extent of the law. And this creates additional mechanisms, right, to hold people accountable.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the explanation. Thank you for working on it. I think if we're going to have a Texas Ethics Commission, they need to have teeth. It doesn't do us any good to have agencies and they do what we'd like them to do, and then there's no way to enforce it. So thank you very much for setting up a structure.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator Menendez,
President.
for what purpose?
Questions of the author, Mr. President.
Senator Middleton, do you yield?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Mays, your bill is the sunset bill for the Texas Ethics Commission. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So unfortunately, because of that, it's not a bill that we're able to add a lot of policy issues to that. Is that correct?
Right, and there's some rules on layouts in committee and some other restrictions that apply to this type of legislation.
Do you recall the Senate bill that we passed and an amendment that we passed unanimously out of this chamber where we required sexual harassment prevention training and ethics courses for lobbyists? Do you remember that?
I do. I believe you authored that bill.
I did, and I had the amendment ready for your bill, and I want to thank you for being open to that, because I know that you agree with me that there's no room for predatory behavior in this building, and that many times lobbyists, especially when there's young staff, inexperienced young people in this building, can have an imbalance of power, and sometimes people feel are vulnerable to exploitation. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and that was a great bill that I was proud to support. I'm glad you brought that forward in the past. It's good policy, and it sends a good message too, because we all hear the stories about things that happen in the Capitol that are inappropriate, and we need to make sure we set the highest ethical standard in this state.
Well, I appreciate your vote, your support of that policy, and it's a dang shame that we have the rule that we can't add this excellent policy to your bill, but I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you for your work on that issue, Senator Menendez.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the regular order of business on committee substitute for Senate Bill 2403. Is there objection? Hearing none. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 2403. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2403 relating to the functions and duties of the Texas Ethics Commission.
Following an amendment, the Secretary will read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Middleton.
Senator Middleton recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment empowers the Texas Ethics Commission to dismiss minor violations. Those are the Category 1 complaints early in the process to conserve agency resources. As well, it requires automatic dismissal of such complaints if the respondent has had no more than 2 prior complaints and the violation is de minimis, so not serious under Category 1. And this amendment reduces needless investigations over clerical errors while preserving the Commission's ability to revisit and hold accountable repeat and escalating conduct that discussed with Senator Campbell.
Questions on the adoption of floor amendment number 1. Is there objection? Hearing none. Amendment's adopted. Following amendment, Secretary read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 2 by Middleton.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment strengthens the procedural rights for respondents in formal ethics hearings. Under the amendment, a respondent may request that the State Office of Administrating Hearings conduct their formal hearing instead of the Ethics Commission, and if they make that request, they will be responsible for covering the associated costs as set forth by the administrative law judge, and this ensures due process while protecting taxpayer dollars and upholding the principle that those requesting an alternate venue should bear the expense. That I move adoption.
Questions on the adoption of floor amendment number 2. Is there objection? Hearing none. Amendment is adopted. Senator Middleton, you recognized for a motion.
Thanks, President. Members, I move passage and engrossment.
Senator Middleton moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? Hearing none. Bill is passed to engrossment. Senator Middleton, you recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
So moved.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the 3-day rule. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Rules are suspended. Chair lays out on third reading. Final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2403. The Secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 2403 relating to the functions and duties of the Texas Ethics Commission.
Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion.
Move final passage.
Senator Middleton moves final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 2403. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Bill is finally passed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The following motion in writing. Secretary, read the motion.
Motion in writing. Mr. President, the following members hereby request to suspend Senate Rule 7.07B to permit the introduction of bills and resolutions as follows. Senate Bill 3072 by Hughes, Senate Bill 3073 by Huffman, and SJR 87 by Huffman.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is adopted. Following bills and resolutions on first reading and in reference to committee. Secretary, read the bills and resolutions.
Senate Bill 3073 by Huffman, relating the duty of a magistrate to make written findings in certain criminal proceedings to criminal justice. SJR 87 by Huffman, proposing a constitutional amendment requiring the denial of bail to persons accused of certain offenses punishable as a felony to criminal justice. Senate Bill 3072 by Hughes, relating the term of an easement granted by the Parks and Wildlife Commission to an electric cooperative for certain state land to business and commerce. House Bill 49, Natural Resources. House Bill 229 to State Affairs. House Bill 361 to Local Government. House Bill 700 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 796 to State Affairs. House Bill 1128 to State Affairs. House Bill 1534 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 1661 to State Affairs. House Bill 1803 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 1837 to Criminal Justice. House Bill 1866 to Criminal Justice. House Bill 2149 to Local Government. House Bill 2282 to Criminal Justice. House Bill 2294 to Economic Development. House Bill 2434 to Finance. House Bill 2440 to Natural Resources. House Bill 2761 to Criminal Justice. House Bill 2785 to State Affairs. House Bill 2867 to Water, Agricultural, and Rural Affairs. House Bill 3057 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 3062 to Education K through 16. House Bill 3134 to Transportation. House Bill 3185 to Criminal Justice. House Bill 3225 to State Affairs. House Bill 3233 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 3358 to Criminal Justice. House Bill 3388 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 3421 to Jurisprudence. House Bill 3619 to Natural Resources. House Bill 3658 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 3675 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 3687 to Local Government. House Bill 3697 to State Affairs. House Bill 3743 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 3745 to Finance. House Bill 3787 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 3848 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 3866 to Natural Resources. House Bill 3940 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 3984 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 4176 to Criminal Justice. House Bill 4205 to Local Government. House Bill 4226 to Finance. House Bill 4429 to Transportation. House Bill 4437 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 4463 to State Affairs. House Bill 4506 to Local Government. House Bill 4730 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 4735 to Finance. House Bill 4752 to Local Government. House Bill 4813 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 4903 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 4904 to State Affairs. House Bill 5033 to Natural Resources. House Bill 5057 to Local Government. House Bill 5129 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 5137 to Jurisprudence. House Bill 5138 to State Affairs. House Bill 5149 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 5153 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 5155 to Health and Human Services. House Bill 5195 to Economic Development. House Bill 5196 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 5200 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 5224 to Business and Commerce. House Bill 5294 to Education K through 16. House Bill 5339 to Education K through 16. House Bill 5394 to Health and Human Services. HCR 108 to Water, Agricultural, and Rural Affairs.
Members, the President's desk is clear. Are there any announcements? Senator Flores.
Mr. President, I move suspension of the posting rules in order for the Criminal Justice Committee to meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. in E1028 to hear Senate Bill 3073 and SJR 87 by Huffman.
Members, are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Senator Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the 24-hour posting rule in accordance with Senate Rules 11.1 and 11.18 so that Senate Committee on Economic Development can meet today, Tuesday, May the 13th, 2025. We will meet in the press room, 2E.9 at 2:25 to consider pending business.
Members, are there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, the local and uncontested calendar has been placed on your desk to review before the calendar to be held in the Senate chamber on Wednesday, May 14th at 1 p.m.
Senator Creighton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to suspend the 24-hour posting rules in accordance with Rule 1110 and 1118 so that the Senate Education Committee K through 16 can meet today, May 13th at 2:35 p.m. in the Betty King Room to consider pending business. Mr. President and members, if there's no questions, I move suspension.
Members, are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Senator Hughes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to suspend the 24-hour posting rule in accordance with Senate Rules 11.10, 11.13, and 11.18, so the Senate Committee on State Affairs can meet today, Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, at Desk 1 at a time certain 2:25 p.m. to consider pending business. And that's my motion.
Members, any objection on the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Senator Colcourse, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I move to suspend the 24-hour posting rule in accordance with Senate Rules 11.10 and 11.18 so that the Committee on Health and Human Services can meet, can hear these bills tomorrow, Wednesday, May 14th, at the posted time right here on the Senate floor. Mr. President, those bills would be House Bill 694, House Bill 923, and House Bill 4655.
Members, any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Members, are there any other announcements? Chair recognizes the Dean of the Senate for a highly privileged motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and members, I move that the Senate adjourn until 11 a.m. Wednesday, May 14th.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The Senate stands adjourned until 11 a.m. Wednesday, May 14th.